Okay, we're going to start with project initiation. Uh, Initiating a project includes uh, starting a new project or a project phase. And the main goal is to select and start off your projects. So if you'll look at this table, this is your project initiation knowledge areas, processes, and outputs. So your knowledge areas are project integration management and stakeholder management. Okay, so in the integration management, you need to develop your project charter and decide uh, what it is your project is, your scope, and how it aligns with the mission of the organization. You talk about the organization and the company and how it will align and what will it do, what will this project do for that organization. So your output is the actual project charter. Next, we'll talk about stakeholder management. So you're going to identify who is involved in the project and who has a benefit for the project. So it could be your CIO, CEO, the project manager, the project team, and the users of the project or customers. So you'll have to identify your stakeholders and their roles, and then your output is a stakeholder register. You'll have their names, their roles, their excuse me, their titles, and maybe even their contact information like their email address or their telephone numbers. And here's a sample of a stakeholder register. They'll have the name, their position. If they're external to the company or corporation or organization, or internal. For instance, this one person down here is a business analyst and they're external and they're an advisor. So they may have hired this person as a contractor or contracted employee to come in and help them with their business processes. Okay. And here is stakeholder management strategy. So you can list the names of the people and whether they have a level, if their interest level in the project is high or low, and the level of influence, if it's high or low. So notice sometimes that's often sensitive, so you don't want to publish some of this information. And the potential management strategies. This one says this particular person likes to stay on top of key projects and make money. Um, and he has a lot of short face-to-face meetings. They focus on achieving the financial benefits of the project. So if you know a little bit about each one of your stakeholders, you'll know how to brief them and what they uh, like to see in a project status report. Next is Lois Mills. She has a lot of things on her plate. She doesn't seem excited about the project, so she may be looking at other job opportunities. Show her how this project may help the company and her resume. So these are just little notes on each person that may be a stakeholder. Next, we'll talk about project charters and kickoff meetings. So this is the charter in your kickoff meeting is one of your first team projects or um, that you will be doing. Each week we will have a different project plan, documentation, or something for your actual team to do. So charters are normally short, include project information and stakeholder signatures. It's a good practice to hold a kickoff meeting at the beginning of your project so that stakeholders can meet each other, review the goals of the project, and discuss future plans. So for your kickoff meetings, for your particular group or team, you will just meet online or in person. You can come up with some kind of collaborative tool like Zoom um, or Google. I believe it's a Google Meet. Even Discord is another suggestion. But your team can make plans on what technology you want to use to meet, since you're all online. When I teach face-to-face classes, then the face-to-face students can meet in the library, or they can also meet online as well. So you might want to generate a meeting agenda, a kickoff meeting agenda. On your team, you will want to select a project manager for your team. And you can rotate this role each week if you like, or you can keep the same project manager for your team all the way through the semester. So first off, a kickoff meeting, you're going to come up with an agenda, and this is an example, and you can use some of these examples or templates for your meeting and your deliverables for the course. Next, we'll talk about planning. So the main purpose of project planning is to guide the execution of the project. Every knowledge area, including planning information, should be addressed. So your key outputs for this particular project listed in your book, the case study, the JWD project, included a team contract, project scope statement, work breakdown structure, that's your task, to each task to be able to complete your particular project, a project schedule in the form of Gantt chart, and all the dependencies of resources entered. Then a list of risks, so your risk register, and make sure that they're prioritized. And you'll have some sample documents on page 101 in your text. Here's the Gantt chart. And so notice under your task name, these are work breakdown structure listed on the left-hand side. You've got initiating phase, planning, executing, monitoring, and closing. So in each one of these phases, then you're going to have tasks that have to be completed. And then your Gantt chart shows you a timeline. So the initiating phase is just going to take from April 15th to probably right before May, so it's probably like maybe a week or so. The planning phase is going to start after the initiating phase. The initiating phase is going to have your kickoff meeting in it. And so your planning phase is going to take a little bit longer, that may be about 3 or 4 weeks. And then the executing phase is going to start at the beginning after your initiating phase all the way to the end of your execution, and then you start monitoring and controlling and then closing out the project. So you can see how long it takes to complete the whole project. A little after April 15th to October 28th. Okay. And these lines are linkages. And it tells me that some of these tasks can be completed at the same time that other tasks are completed. For instance, these two. But then that one the templates and tools have to be finished before you start linking them. Okay. So here's a list of prioritized risks. So like I said, you want to rank them 1 to 10 and the potential risk on certain things. You can use some of these as templates as well. Lack of inputs from internal consultants or representatives, the security of a new system, outsourcing, purchasing, organizing templates and examples, providing search feature, and this is based on this particular case study. So your particular project, you're going to decide on your own IT project and your own company. So this is just giving you a little example based on the case study. Next, project execution, rather. Excuse me. Usually takes most of the time and resources to perform this phase. The project managers use their leadership skills and handle all sorts of challenges in this phase. The Table 311 will list executing processes and outputs. Project sponsors, customers focus on the actual deliverables related to products, services, or the results from the project. And then you can develop a milestone report, and that is on different phases. There's periods of time where you want to give a status report, or you want to have something done by these particular milestones or this particular date. So here's an example of a milestone report. So you want to have, in the initiating phase, you want the stakeholders identified by a certain date, May 2nd. So we want to make sure that that's completed. And then you will assign a resource or a person or two people or a group of people to do that particular task. And so you can look through each one of the phases. You want to have some milestones completed, some major milestones. So the best practice is to learn about project management is study the PMI's Project of the Year Award, and you can go to the PMI website for that. The Quartier International de Montreal is called QIM. It's Montreal's international district was a 66-acre urban revitalization project in the heart of Montreal. And it was a $90 million 5-year project. Turned once an unpopular area into a thriving section of the city with booming real estate market, and has generated $770 million in related construction. So project monitoring and controlling involves measuring the progress toward your project objectives. So you got to look at how, if you deviated from your project plan at all, and then take corrective actions. Excuse me. Project monitoring also affects other process groups and occurs during all phases of the project lifecycle. Outputs include performance reports, change requests, and updates to various plans. So some of those plans that you develop in the earlier stages will, and more than likely, will change. So you'll have to keep updating them. And I'll go back to that a minute. With the updates. Let's say, for instance, I estimated how much it's going to cost to purchase hardware and software for a particular organization for a certain project. And if the cost of that hardware and software goes up or down, then I'm going to have to go back and update my plan. So that's one example of why you would have to keep updating previous documents. Now for project closing. So project closing involves gaining the stakeholder and customer acceptance of your final project service. So we've got to make sure that it meets the requirements. If it doesn't meet the requirements, then the customer or the stakeholders aren't going to like it very much, and customers may not even use it. So you have to have that stakeholder and customer buy-in. Even if the projects are not completed, they should be closed out to learn from past mistakes or past good things that you've done for the project that actually helped it become more successful. Outputs include project files and lessons learned reports. And those lesson learned reports also include what you did that made the project successful, or what kind of mistakes did you find that could could have prevented that project from being successful. I mean, the lessons learned, or I could do this a little bit better and it would have decreased our cost, or what have you. The lessons learned reports is part of a historical document that if another team has another project like yours, then they can go back and look at your lessons learned and not make those same mistakes again. Or they can also see what you did well and mimic those particular um, um, tasks or uh, project plans. Part of the organizational process assets as well are those lessons learned reports. Most projects also include a final report and presentation. So you will be giving me a final executive report or executive summary, and then you're going to present it at the end of the semester. And the presentation will be to the sponsor or senior management, which I will be in that role. Okay, so in JWD's Consulting Project Management intranet site is an agile approach. So this section demonstrates the agile approach to managing projects, and the differences in this approach are highlighted. An agile project team typically uses several iterations or deliveries of software instead of waiting till the end of the project to provide one product. Okay. An informed decision. It's not a snap decision whether to use agile approach or not. It's like flying or driving somewhere on a trip. So projects all depends on your project as to what approach you use. Projects with less rigid constraints, experienced and preferably co-located teams, smaller risk, unclear requirements, and more flexible scheduling would be more compatible with an agile approach. The following example uses Scrum roles, artifacts, and ceremonies. Here are your Scrum roles. So a product owner is the person responsible for the business value of the project and decides what work to do and in what order. And then it's documented in the product backlog. Scrum Master is a person who ensures that the team is productive, facilitates daily Scrum, and enables close cooperation across all the roles and functions, and removes any kind of barriers that prevent the team from being effective. And so your Scrum team or your development team is a cross-functional team of 5 to 9 people who organizes themselves and the work to produce desired results for each sprint, which lasts 2 to 4 weeks. Now, cross-functional team is sort of like an integrated process team of different people from different organizations. Now, the artifacts that are used are product backlog, sprint backlog, and the burn down chart. So the product backlog is a list of features prioritized by the business, or it gives the business some value. The highest priority items are the sprint backlog from the product backlog to be completed within the sprint. And our burn down chart shows all the work that's remaining in a sprint on a day-to-day basis. Scrum ceremonies is a sprint planning session, meeting with the team to select the work from the product backlog to deliver during the sprint. And a daily scrum is a short meeting for the development team to share the progress and challenges and plan the work for the day. So you'll have a sprint reviews or a meeting in which the team demonstrates the product to the owner and what has been completed during the sprint. And then sprint retrospective is a meeting in which the team looks for ways to improve the product and the process based on a review of the performance of the team. So here is an image showing your Scrum framework and the process groups. And some unique Scrum activities by the process group. You still have initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. So in initiating, you've got determine the roles, how many sprints will it compose. It will compose each release and scope of software. So Scrum is basically used with software. In planning, you create a product backlog, sprint backlog, and release backlog. You plan the work each day in a daily scrum, document it with stumbling blocks in the list. And then in executing, you complete the task each day during the sprints. Produce a shippable product at the end of each sprint. So you're developing a little bit at a time. And then monitoring and controlling. You're going to talk about resolving your issues and whatever your blockers are that's going to prevent you from doing what you need to do. You create and update a burn down chart and demonstrate the completed product. At closing, you will going to reflect on how to improve the product and process during the sprint reflection meeting. So, let's talk about planning. It's not different from the PMBOK guide. You still create a scope statement and can use a Gantt chart for the entire project schedule. Other planning is similar as well, like a risk management plan and an HR management plan. So what is different is the descriptions of work identified in the product and sprint backlogs. You have a more detailed work documented in technical stories, estimate the velocity or capacity for each sprint, and then you release what's called a roadmap, which is used for the schedule. And here's another Gantt chart, baseline Gantt chart for Scrum approach. Very similar. Okay. So your product and sprint backlogs. The product backlogs uses story templates, samples, and a point person, work breakdown, structure templates, samples, project schedules, samples, and a point person, and so pretty much similar. Sprint backlog uses the same thing: story templates, samples, point person, work breakdown templates, samples there as well. Project schedule templates, samples, and point person. Ability to charge customers for some intranet products and services, ability to collect user suggestions. Executing is not different from PMBOK either. You still produce products, lead people. The only difference there is you're producing several releases of software. And users of the new software might be confused by getting several iterations of the product instead of just one. So communication will be different because the project team meets every morning physically or virtually. Monitoring and Controlling is not different either. You still check the actual work versus planned work, and you can use uh, the Gantt chart and the work breakdown structure in your project plan to look at the actual versus your planned work. So what's different is you have key reviews and their daily Scrum and sprint reviews. And a sprint board is used instead of tracking Gantt chart or other tools, but it still looks pretty much the same. And you use a burn down chart versus earned value chart. And here's an example of a burn down chart. How much work to complete. Notice that the gray line or darker line is the remaining work that has to be complete, and the blue line is the ideal velocity. That's what your goal is. And in closing, it's not any different either. The focus is on acceptance of deliverables and reflection, and also the lessons learned. The retrospective is similar to lessons learned report, but it focuses on a shorter period of time. It's intended to answer these two questions. What went well during the last sprint that we should continue doing, and what could we do differently to improve the product or process? So that pretty much goes into that lessons learned report. Okay, so there's some templates available on these two websites here. And Kathy Schwab has several and some examples that you can use as well. But these two websites are really good. And I have also posted or downloaded and posted several templates on our D2L site. So in summary, you have 5 project management process groups: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, and closing. And you can map the main activities of each process group to 9 knowledge areas. Some organizations develop their own information technology project management methodologies. So you may, when and if you have a career that you have to do some project management type tasks, they may already have some methodologies for you to use. The JWD Consulting case study provides an example using the process groups and shows several different types of project documents. And then the second version of the same case study illustrates using Agile, which is Scrum, and the biggest difference is providing the 3 releases of usable software versus just 1. So that is the end of this lecture, and they used a software project to illustrate. However, you may want to come up with your own IT project. As long as it's computer and IT related, I will leave it up to your group to decide what you want to do. I will give you some suggestions in the assignment. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, please let me know, and just shoot me an email. I'll see you guys later. Thanks.